You come on up here.
They ran to Fort Monroe.
They were in Norfolk working on the fortifications, and they commandeered a boat, and they rowed across Hampton Roads. Then they did what?
They went to Fort Monroe.
They ran to Fort Monroe.
Yeah.
And they went to General Butler here. General Butler? That was not nice.
I know.
Nice trip. And they said, well, we'd like asylum. That went against all the law, the fugitive slave law that's been in effect for decades, that enslaved people had to be returned. And so General Butler says, you guys are contraband, we're going to let you stay here. Through the Lincoln administration in turmoil, because it was getting ahead of the game here a little bit. And the next day or so, one of Colonel Mallory's friends comes and meets with General Butler and says, can we have those folks back? Can you return them? And Butler says, this is what you would have said if you said it. General Butler says, well, if Virginia will acknowledge they're still in the Union, under the protection of the the Slave Fugitives Act, got that tangled up, that we'll send them back.
Wow.
The Confederate emissary says, no. Conversation dried up. Then we had a Civil War. But he's buried, Charles King Mallory is buried right over there. And these three men, courageous men, started this evolution of people leaving the plantations. Of course, they've been done before here and there. But soon, 10, 20 old, young men, women, children start coming to Fort Monroe, which they call Freedom's Fort. And then what happens, of course, is eventually the Confederates know they can't hold Hampton. This Fort Monroe is so close. So on August 7, 1861, they tied their horses to the west wall of St. John's Church. They moved right down past us with torches in their hands, a mob sort of like this, and they start setting afire to the town. Pretty soon over 500 houses go up in flames. The next day the town is nothing but blackened ruins. The church that you see across the way is just walls. The windows are gone, the doors are gone, the roof is gone. Everything is desolation. Abraham Lincoln himself rides through this town later, and he looks at this desolation and he's just dismayed by it. But all this happened here in Hampton. Anybody have any questions?
Wasn't it the residents of Hampton, a lot of them?
Good point. It was the good citizens of this town. Many of these men had lived here. General John B. Magruder at Yorktown sent them 4 companies strong. Many of them actually lived here. And they burned their own town to the ground. First act of total war, the Civil War. And of course this church had survived the Revolutionary War, it survived the War of 1812, and so much more, and it burned to the ground during the Civil War, and it just left there stark ruins. And that's why it's even more remarkable that it still stands today. Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll lose my voice to cross streets. Follow me!